Welcome to another episode of the Swords and Sports Podcast. I used to say 52 fantasy books in 52 weeks, but the show is revamped. Doesn't mean I don't have something exciting for you, because this week I'm joined by recurring guest, mastermind, and quite a bit of a potty mouth, as if I'm not, the one and only Brian Naslund. He's here to talk about his books Sorcery of a Queen and Fury of a Demon, which are books 2 and 3 of the Dragons of Terra trilogy. I always say Dragons of Terror at first, and I think like Terror Squad, and I think that's a cool name for a book, Dragons of Terror Squad, but that's not what it's called. Brian's interview is coming up right after I make some announcements. I'm nixing book details from the show, so if you're wondering how many pages it is, go on Goodreads like everybody else, because I do not think that's information anybody can absorb. I love talking to Brian, and I'm just going to put the spoiler warning out now. Because it's books 2 and 3, there are spoilers for the entire series. There's spoilers for Sorcery of a Queen, and there's certainly spoilers for Fury of a Demon. So if you haven't read the books yet, just pop in for the first half of the interview, because it is hysterical. I'm telling you, this interview just devolved into chaos immediately. It actually devolved into chaos before we even started the interview, and I was like, we gotta save some of this. We gotta start this shit. So, if you're looking for more details on the show, such as who's coming on in the given week, when an episode's coming out, and all that other relevant stuff, you can follow me on Twitter. The handle is @SwordsandSports. If you're looking for where the videos are, they all live on the Swords and Sports video channel. And if you're looking for the audio, of course, you can find the podcast on all your podcast listening platforms, including Apple, Spotify, Google something, and Audible, I'm pretty sure. Once again, a humongous thank you to everybody for the Stabby Award. It has meant more to me than anything in my entire life, and I got married within the last year, so put that into perspective. Without further ado, Brian Naslund.
You lots of material.
Right. He's back. It's the return of Brian Naslund. He's here to talk about Dragons of Terra, and we're doing a new thing this week. We're doing 2 books at once. So it's Sorcery of a Queen and Fury of a Demon. Because guess what? It's finished. And I'm super excited to have you back on, Brian. So what's up?
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I've been looking forward to it all day. I'm fired up.
He said that before, and I said it was a lie. But he's gonna keep hammering it home till I believe
it's the truth. This is gonna be the height of my Monday, I can tell.
We got to address right away. I just want to start right away. How many times is too many times to get pooped on by a bird while writing?
Okay, I knew this was going to come up, and for context, I wrote the majority of Fury of a Demon on my porch during a time when birds were very active, and so the poop was a problem because it's like right underneath this very big tree. And it was my writing porch. I was in the group, so I didn't want to change locations, but there was a constant threat of birds coming through and pooping on me. So it happened, 2 or 3 times? I can't even remember. It happened more than once.
Which seems more than it should.
Yeah, which seems more often than it should, right? But it was like once on my keyboard and I got splattered, and I believe once kind of like right on the temple. And I didn't stop. I finished the book despite this clear problem, and like I can't move the tree, and the birds are a known factor. There were a lot of ways to deal with it, and I just continued on. So that's why that happened to me so many times.
Listen, they say that writing isn't a physically and mentally exhausting process. I don't know who they are, but the fact that you overcame that adversity and put this book out, it needs to be applauded. Also, I'm now thinking, as you're saying that, I'm like, multiple creatures take shits in book 3, and I'm wondering how inspired by this was.
I like that we've moved straight into the fecal matter, because I get sometimes a little bit of flack for including so much fecal mentions in all of my books, really. But, it could be. There was a time in Fury where I was like, there's not enough dragon shit in this book. And it might have been because a bird just pooped on me. And I was like, write what you know. And I know about being pooped on. So here we are.
You know what? If you're going to find inspiration from anything, way to turn a negative into a positive.
Exactly. Some people say it's good luck, and I choose to I choose to believe that.
Well, if good luck means turning it into an excellent conclusion, then yes, it was good luck.
Thank you.
We may have talked about this before, but with all three books out, where do the models come from for these covers? Like, is it the same model on book 3 as on book 1?
Yeah, I believe that it is. And my assumption is that, the model had done one photo shoot and they had all these images to choose from. And, they kind of, I don't know. I mean, maybe they brought him back in, but I highly doubt it. I think he probably had done a big array of stuff. And yeah, but I'm almost positive it's the same dude.
What did the casting call look like for that?
I'm probably just like, someone with Dragon Slayer vibes, and they went from there. I think they achieved that.
Now, if you read that casting call, would you be like, "That's me"?
I would not. My bicep looks a lot different than that model's biceps. I try to do my curls, I try to do my pull-ups when I can, but I've unfortunately not achieved a massive bicep capable of slaying a dragon.
For everyone who's not watching on the YouTube, Brian almost brought his bicep into the camera and then did not.
Oh, yeah, I turned off myself.
Decided not to in the end. And you know what? Maybe that was for the best.
I don't know. I'll leave it to the imagination. It's not quite as big as the cover guys, but I'd say it's 94% as large. So it's good that I'm not going to prove it because I don't have to. But yeah, I've got guns.
I'm tempted. I'm tempted to say you've got Dragon Slayer hair, but I feel like we spent way too long last year talking about the hair, so I'm not even going to go there.
Okay, yeah, let's get there. Yeah, I did my bun, I did my hair and makeup, and I was like, it looks a little bit weird and tall, but I'm going to go with it. Yeah, I'm going to let it play.
The amount of dude's hair I've talked about on this podcast is insane.
I'm glad to hear that. It's a topic that's not covered often enough.
You mentioned the shit references and that you got some flack for it, but I wanted to address a different word that you seem to have a growing obsession with, and It's big on this podcast. In fact, it's a main feature, but you seem to have a growing obsession with dicks, because the amount of the word cock that you've used has gone exponentially up in all three books. So
interesting. I did not know that. You know what's funny? I do, because I also, like, I'm told I use a little bit more profanity than some people might consider necessary. So one of the last things I do is go through all the fucks and shits, and I redact like 20% of them. I'm like, all right, like, we don't need all these in here. I did not do a cock redaction, and that's probably why it happened that way.
Oh my God, it would be great if you said cock reduction. This interview has gone disgusting, but I consulted with the stats team and I've got numbers for you.
Okay, yeah. Hit me with it.
The hard part is, and this is where I have the deep research team. This is Billy Bean baseball stats. This is where I'm going through all this. Because the word cocked, and in books 2 and 3, the word cockpit could throw off the amateur statistician, but not me.
No, you don't want to pollute the data.
The first book was, I would say, a measly 15 times.
Oof, those are rookie numbers.
Those are rookie numbers.
Yeah.
But you came back with a strong second season. Now, most people see a drop off in their second season, but not you. You put up a good 29.
Oof, good. That is a good improvement. Yeah.
And in the last one, I think you hit 34. So, you increased.
I think I know the two scenes that did it too. I think cock probably gets, I think a lot of those 34 are centered around one or two like pages or chapters or something, but I can't remember.
Well, if it makes you feel better, in about 20 minutes, we'll be going through about 10 examples of it. So
good. Okay. That'll jog my memory for how they all got in there.
Now, if anybody's listening and wants to check the stats themselves, I did the stats. If you're wondering, there is no stats team here, if you could have guessed. And those numbers are probably wrong. So what are you going to do?
It feels right. That feels about right. And I'm here for it. I like it.
What do you think contributed to your growth in this very important field in fantasy writing?
What it really was? It was dick jokes. And I've said that word in public way more than I ever thought I would, especially in the last few weeks and months. But yeah, it's that, because there's a joke in the book that his dick is a foot long, and then it's just normal.
Oh, I know.
he's famous, and so it continues to come up. And even straight through to the very end, it's still I found that amusing, even though I've been telling that joke for 3 books straight. So hopefully at least you also found it amusing straight through the very end.
I found it more funny every time I read it. It was a joke that grew in the telling.
Exactly. That was what I was going for. It's richer. There's more context,
Right.
Yeah, there's a narrative arc to the mentions of the dick joke.
I just didn't see any mention of circumference. That's where I was thrown off. But let's move on.
I figured I pick my battles. You don't want to be gratuitous with these things. You gotta pick an angle.
In non-lower extremity related questions, because there are some.
Okay, good.
I wanted to talk to you about something that I could relate to. Now, you're an audiobook listener, and I believe you were doing Jade Legacy, and
I was, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you were in Whole Foods and you started crying. And my first thought was, if I'm in Whole Foods, I'm crying because of the prices. But second, this is a problem with audiobooks.
It is.
I run with audiobooks, right? And this was purely so I could brag about running. And there's times where I'm crying and I'm like, this is not great. Someone's going to think I got like assaulted or something. And I'm like,
you're having like a PTSD flashback from some traumatic thing.
Well, what if people,
some gym coach screaming at you or something like that?
I mean, I'm in short shorts, so it does look good. It doesn't look great for me. What do people look at you in Whole Foods? I mean, half the people are crying in Whole Foods, but besides.
Yeah, I was definitely getting some sideways looks. What happened was, especially because it's an audiobook, so I didn't really know exactly how close I was to the end of it. Like I knew I was getting there, but I thought I had more time. And I was like in just like the end climax of all of these extremely emotional things happening to these characters that I've been with for the whole trilogy. And I really love those books, so I was like all the way invested. I didn't realize what I was in for until I think I was like walking into Whole Foods. I was like, this might be a mistake. Maybe I should hold my shopping off until I see what happens here. And then it was a simmering cry. I wasn't quite bawling, but if you like looked at me twice, like clearly there was something wrong in my
that might be worse.
I can't remember. It's like a blur now, like a literal blur, because I was crying. Like I think I went through the self checkout, so I didn't have to like make eye contact with the cashier who's like, you don't have to buy these crazy expensive mangoes if you don't want to. Like you can go down the road to Safeway or whatever. But
I just want good quality mangoes.
It was a trying experience. And then I would like, I didn't drive home, so I was eating, my sadness calzone that I bought at Whole Foods at a large markup. It was worth it, though. It was worth every penny. And I think I finished the book in the parking lot, just sobbed. Then I was sobbing. And in the comfort of my own car, I was losing my shit.
But don't think that escaped me, that right there. I'm not going to let that one go. So you got the calzone in Whole Foods. Was it hot at least?
Yeah, it's in their little hot bar area. Yeah, it's a hot calzone. Had it been left under some heat lights for 4 to 5 hours, potentially, I don't know, but the taste was not effective. It did make me feel better.
A comfort calzone, that sounds soothing.
Right? I didn't go in planning to buy a calzone, but halfway through my trip, I was like, well, I need a calzone now. I need something to make me feel different than the way I feel right now.
100%. I mean, yeah. I can't think of anything better. Some people like gravitate to chocolates or, I guess your comfort food is calzones.
Exactly. I don't eat pizza that often, so it's something unexpected has to happen to me. And in that case, it was finishing Jade Legacy.
It is a risk though. Like if you're driving and you're listening to an audiobook, which I do as well, and like I start tearing up, like you could crash that thing.
Exactly. Like you don't know, what kind of traffic situation you're going to be in, and then what emotions are going to collide with you in that situation. It's rough. Yeah.
Listen, being from New York, I cry half the time when I got to try to get over a bridge. So maybe it's actually not that bad. I've got more experience with that than I'd like to mention.
I hear. I'm from Baltimore, so I'm familiar. Not quite as bad traffic. Or I think in some ways it's like it's different kinds of horrible traffic, I guess, in Baltimore versus New York.
Well, you used to take this long bus ride you're always mentioning in your author bio, right? And then you were going to New York
Yeah.
that way.
No, that was in Colorado, but I think I'd brought my East Coast road rage to
Right,
Colorado, and
right,
it's really
right.
it's really not suitable for that environment.
I
People are
can't
more
imagine they
chill.
enjoy that.
Exactly. And like no one was on the same page with how I wanted to go down this highway to work. And so I was like, I need to take myself out of this. I'm the problem and I need to get on a bus.
What's what's that expression? If everyone is driving like an asshole, you're the asshole.
Exactly. No, that was what was happening. And I was like, I'm either going to get into a wreck or I'm going to get into a fight. And I don't know how to fight. I never learned how to do that really. So I was like, I need to, I blame myself, not the Colorado drivers. They're much more polite than East
That
Coast
seems
drivers.
that seems fair. I can't
Yeah.
imagine. I can't imagine that that would be the inverse. What woodland creature would you want to be?
Okay, see, I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I'd
I
probably
was
go
hoping
otter.
otter. Oh, so like you like the holding hands thing as they go down the river.
Well, there's so the sea otters do that. The river otters in the woodland scenario are
Look
just
at me.
badasses. You know, they're zooming around. I don't know if they do hold hands. I know that the sea otters do. I feel like the river it's a little bit more rushing. You're kind of more of a solo creature. They lead very happy lives. Food scarcity is not that much of a problem for them. They're just it's sort of like crows do this too. Like they're so smart that it takes them about like 10% of their day to get all the food that they need, and they spend the rest of it like playing games and fooling around and
That's
looking
pretty
for
chill.
shiny objects and stuff like that. And like my understanding, this is probably wrong, but this is the otter that I would want to be, where they just the fish don't even stand a chance. It's just anytime I'm hungry, I'm going to grab a few fish, and the rest of the time I'm just going to play around in the water in the rapids, just zooming to and fro. Um, and that's I think who I would want to be. I go otter all the way. Although, yeah, if we're taking birds out of it, which I think we should, I'd be some
Okay.
kind of bird probably. But yeah, if I'm going to be down, in the muck and the mire, I think I'd have a nice life as an otter.
If you couldn't tell where the environmental slants for the books came from, that right there might have.
I'll talk a lot about dick jokes and feces, but if you want to talk about animals, I can also fill up a pretty good podcast episode just with animal facts.
The amount of subjects we've covered in these two interviews has just been it's astounding. My
It
only
goes fast.
knowledge of otters is like the 1 to 3 videos my wife sends me a day of them doing something cute. So, but
Gotcha.
can't say I look much into it. That's cool. All
Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So on the complete other side of that, how often do you floss?
I floss. I tell my dental hygienist that I floss
Yeah,
every
you
day,
had a very, like
and I
sitcom-esque interaction with him.
exactly it was, and like I feel like, I mean, I'm sure there are people out there who floss every single night of their lives and never miss a day, but I'm not one of them. But I like to think I'm in the 90th percentile with my
That's
flossing.
pretty damn
I tell
good.
you, I flossed last night. I can tell you that much.
There you go. Look at that. You gotta, in order to be consistent, you gotta start it one day.
Exactly. I do. There
I don't
was
know if
this.
that's an expression.
I think it is now. That plays.
So many things I just make up and pass off as fact.
That is how both misinformation gets spread, and also how. Well, I guess that's the end of that statement. But also how you hear fun things.
I as I was reading the book, things stand out to sometimes when I'm doing the research for this stuff, a lot of this stuff, these aren't just random questions, everybody, if anybody is first time listening, they do come from somewhere. I don't just randomly ask people how often they floss, though that might be a
Yeah,
good question.
might be, but yeah, hot takes from my Twitter feed.
I read this about you, that you watch dramas that are comforting, and when I read your books, I think, what's comforting about the way that you do surgeries
The way that I do surgeries.
in the books?
That's a good question. I will say one of my favorite scenes that I wrote is it's in Sorcery of a Queen, and I won't do spoilers or anything, but it's Jolin is kind of doing his first kind of emergency triage type thing. And it was very ER vibes of figuring out the most hurt people, and he's got his he has been sort of insecure, and he finds this place of competency. And I feel like it's like competence porn, which is a term that I hadn't heard of until fairly recently, but makes a lot of sense. And I feel like ER has a lot of that. The West Wing has a lot of it. Like my favorite part of the West Wing was like the Secret Service people just like doing their jobs really well. I'm like, I can just sit here and watch this all day. Ron
Okay.
Butterfield of the Secret Service, this is a deep cut of the West Wing, is my favorite character because he's just like, he just looks like a normal dude, but is just crazy good at his job. I like that kind of thing. Just people doing their jobs well. It's exciting to me.
Okay. Interesting. I would say there's been like maybe many competent surgeons in your books, but the ethics is where it gets a little screwy.
But that's fair. Yeah. I wouldn't call Osiris, a super ethical above board dude, but he's good at what he does,
Yeah, hey, I mean, maybe that's competence poured in its own, twisted way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
How many years? I've always had this question. How many years of an actor playing a doctor on TV? How many years would it take before that person should be awarded an actual medical degree?
It's a good question. I mean, I feel like Anthony Edwards from ER definitely, probably could have done open heart surgery at that point, and he put in a good, he put in a good long while. So at least 7 years, but probably more like 15. After the 15 mark, it's like, all right, have I been pretending to operate on a dummy for, over a decade? Yes.
Well, how long Grey's Anatomy been on?
Oh God, that's been on for forever. Yeah, they're all doctors now.
I would trust them to do a surgery over like a resident.
Exactly. It's like, I get that, you have no medical training whatsoever, but like, yeah.
Granted, that show is being considered the most medically inaccurate show, but I'd still take my chances. There's nothing like experience. You can't replicate experience.
I think it's one of those things where, if it's just going to be inside of a normal surgery room doing open heart surgery, would I go for the real surgeon? Yes. But if it's like in an elevator with like regular tools and no, sanitation, there's high drama and there's like, music playing in the background, then you want to go with the actor. They're used to that kind of thing. The surgeon's going to fold. He's like, I do my surgeries in a surgery room. I don't know what to do here. He's going to choke. And so that's when I want the Grey's Anatomy skill.
That's like you're like, oh my God, my heart, I need surgery. And you're like, who's here? And you see whatever her name is, and you just play the music on your phone and just snaps. You just see it in her eyes and she goes to work.
Exactly. Yeah, it kicks in. Yeah, it's like the Manchurian Candidate, but for life-saving procedures that they've never been trained to do. Like the science on that, I think, is maybe not strong, but it's definitely there. There's something there.
Give me 10 minutes and I can make that science sound, I guess.
Exactly.
Have you started to write in your subgenre gritty romance?
Ooh, that tweet didn't get as much play as I thought it would. I thought that was gonna.
You thought that was the
break
one?
In and create. Yeah, I thought that was like, all right, the people are gonna come knocking, asking for gritty romance. It has not happened, unfortunately. But I'm here and waiting. If I'm approached, I can bang something out. I got a lot of ideas. I got an idea folder. I got a few of them. And I'm just waiting for the public to realize that this is what they want.
Well, the problem is I don't think you've teased enough of it. You said shower sex where someone falls, and then like woodland sex where like creatures crawl up in your bits.
All right, now that sounds okay. The idea was we were talking the thread. Something was about just sort of gritty fantasy in general. Gritty fantasy, it's like trying to be more realistic about how violence would work. And so, in a lot of, I think it's more a thing in like movies and romance. They're like, there's a romantic encounter in a place that can't possibly be comfortable or fun for people. And I think that that lie needs to be uncovered a little bit.
You're a truther.
Exactly. I'm just trying to tell the world like it is, and I don't want people to have unrealistic expectations about certain romantic situations they might find themselves in.
Okay.
Again, demand for this has been extraordinarily low.
Yo, but it just takes one. It just takes one. Let's look at it this way. You didn't know what competence porn was until you got into it. And then you're like, oh, a lot of people like this. You don't know if the demand's out there.
Yeah, I didn't even know what it was. Like once I heard the term competence porn and it was explained in the interview, I was like, oh, like the Secret Service agents in the West Wing. I love competence porn. And now that's what I've said a bunch of times in a row, but it's true.
You're like what Tolkien is to fantasy. You're just ahead of your time. What do we have in this folder? This folder that's totally real and you've definitely worked on.
Again, the people need to convince me to unveil the insides
Okay.
of the idea folder. Yeah, I'm waiting until the people are ready or until I found a path to open their minds collectively. You're right. That initial tweet probably wasn't quite enough. It's going to require a little bit more effort on my part. So I need to refine. I need to hone. There'll be a ground zero event, but this is going to blow up. Really, this probably already exists, and that's part of it. Romance writers are very good at what they do, very creative, and yeah. So I don't think that idea is unique at all. It's probably been done by many people way better than I could ever do it.
If anybody has a passage of someone falling in the shower while having shower sex in a book, please send that to us for research purposes.
For a slip, it's like a slip, and then you're no longer comfortable, and you need to change venue. Yeah.
Okay. We badly need that. Remember, words. We don't need the videos.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No.
DMs are open. No, I'm kidding. All right, let's move on to the book because that was a ridiculous segment of about the author. As always, this is a spoilery podcast. If you haven't read the books yet, I don't know what you're doing because like they're out there in the world. He's got like 100 of them behind the right shoulder.
I do. Yeah, they're available everywhere. Yeah.
That is true. I do have a couple pictures of me looking at them in Barnes and Noble.
They're out there.
So go get them.
What are for sale? Yeah, in the UK, you can get the Kindle version for 99 not cents, whatever the UK cents is. It's I should know that. Is it pence? Oh God, I'm afraid I'm so wrong about that. I should know. But anyway, it's a very cheap price.
With a promo like that,
I'm flustered that I just revealed that I don't know anything about UK currency.
If that offended you, you could get back at Brian by buying the book.
There you go.
For some amount of money.
For something less than £1. It's the problem with interviews. Sometimes you start a sentence that you think you know the words to finish it, and you don't.
Oh, trust me, I know. Sometimes you gotta pivot.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, there was a noise in the hawk, and yeah, I can't remember what I was talking about, but I'm going to move on to words that I do know confidently.
I promise we're going to talk about these books. I promise you. Let's start off easy. I've never interviewed about 2 books, so I try to pull some of the better questions. Let's do Sorcery of a Queen first.
All right.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, question 1 involves both books. So whatever. I'm just going to shoot out questions. What are all of Felger's laws?
Oof, I was thinking about this actually before we started. It was interesting. So I finished Fury of a Demon a little over a year ago. Like my last step in it was like last February. And normally, or like in other interviews, like I was working on another book in the series, so I had my head around everything. But that was the last one. So I haven't it's not that I haven't thought about it, but I haven't been rereading my own books over and over again like I have in the past. So I don't even remember their laws of convenience is really what. So there's potentially an infinite number of them in the sense that there's an infinite number of ways Feldborg can get himself into trouble and try to use logical fallacies to get himself out of it.
Okay, because some of them are like, don't be on a ship while sober and stuff. And I'm like, those are pretty good. I like that.
That's a solid law, right?
I mean, that has a lot of merit to it.
Yeah, especially because, if you start with that in the first day, you're going to be hungover the second day, and you don't want to be hungover on a ship. So you got to just keep on tying them on. And if you're on a 30-day trip, your liver is going to be unhappy with you. But the law is the law. So,
Speaking of things that make you unhappy on a ship, Felgor also complains about his stomach. And then he tells a story about a guy he knew that ate persimmons for every meal, and then he couldn't shit for 3 weeks, and then he gets cut off before the story finishes.
That guy did unfortunately perish.
I wasn't expecting that.
It was a painful death that I decided was too unpleasant for the reading audience. That was going to push things over the line, so I decided to redact it.
Okay, so that's too far, but the Simian torture gang
Exactly. No, that's just right. Yeah. But a man dying of constipation, that's uncouth. You can't put that out in the world. The people aren't ready.
My question was less about the tortures that did make it in the book, but how many had you written that didn't make the book?
Ooh, I'm trying. There were some that got cut, and I think it was because with some of the torture scenes, there's like, this is going to be hard for me to articulate. There's like, it's done to move the plot forward and to have world building like implications. And sometimes you write a whole torture scene that goes one way, and it's like, well, no, I don't want that to be the way the world works. So you have to write it over again. And there was actually, I think it's probably a little bit more in the first book, but to some degree, I think in the second and third, that happens again too. So there's a lot of deleted torture scenes, is I guess the way that I put it. But it wasn't because I really enjoyed writing torture scenes. It was more because I was just doing my world building in my own way. Yeah. That's what I'll tell myself, at least.
Right.
Yeah.
I was thinking for a guy who doesn't like writing torture scenes, we might be double digits in the torture scenes.
Sometimes you don't realize what you've done to yourself. A lot of world building is around Rashad's ability to heal, and so in order for him to heal, he has to get hurt, and then you're like, well, now we're in Torture City, and you don't always realize the sidewalk that you're building and where it's going to take you.
Yeah, Rashad has an incredible strategy of just taking as much damage as he possibly can and then just doing drugs.
Much, yeah. I mean, the moss is, it's more like it's a leaf, it's a plant, it's naturally occurring.
This is from a guy who moved to Colorado, everybody. Let's keep that in mind.
the OG state of legalization, but now,
now it's not as unique.
Exactly. Yeah, you got everywhere. But there's, I think, in terms of misinformation, I feel like I'm almost positive that this is true. But there's a quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger, because he's like smoked pot like on camera, I think, in some of his documentaries, and it came up when he was running for office. Like, you've done drugs publicly, like blah blah blah, and he was like, that's not a drug, that's a leaf, and then he just walked away. Which, again, fact checkers should check on that. I'm not sure that that's real, but it's, I think I heard that, which is funny.
I hope that was not something that happened.
I don't know. It's out
not
there
because not because I want you to be wrong, but it would be funny if you just made that up.
Just a completely fake story. There's someone combing the internet. Did he just make that up on the fly? It's so specific too, and not at all related to any people we've been talking about. But yeah, I don't know. It was in my head, and I said it. Now it's out there.
All right. I mean, listen, to me, that happened, regardless of whether it did happen, and I guess that goes back to the importance of misinformation.
Exactly.
Our perceptions are reality. Speaking of perception, I spent a lot of time thinking about this, probably more time than I should have. What does monkey asshole taste like?
Not good. It's chewy. Mostly chewy, I think.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. I could talk more about that, but I'm not going to.
Good. That's a great sidestep. These chordata mushrooms, they make you immortal if you do it right.
Exactly, but there's always a cost.
Worth it?
See, here's the thing with them. It's worth it from the perspective of the person who's full of mushrooms, because that doesn't feel that weird, disgusting, or awful to them, because they're one with the mushroom. From the outside, like, I'm not sure anyone's like, I did kind of want to be immortal, but wasn't sure which path I was going to go. Fountain of Youth, magical ring, but that's the winning avenue. Just completely succumbing to the fungus. I don't think you can't sell it that easily from an outsider's perspective, which is one of the big issues with it. It's probably why it didn't catch on as much as it might have.
That's a tough marketing sell. I'll admit that. That is tough.
Exactly.
Like, you're like, shit, man, I've really been thinking about it. Gotta be immortal. Gotta do it. What are my options? Well, you can only afford the chordata mushrooms. Guess I don't need to do it.
Yeah, it's like, and I think I might just kind of dying seems okay now. If you came with the Fountain of Youth, quick dip, and I just live forever and never change in terms of my visage, like I was with you. But this seems like too high of a price, and I'll just ride this train for as long as it goes. Yeah.
I've got an important question here. None of those other ones were important, but this one.
This is the one. Okay, all right. I'll give you a very serious answer then. Yeah,
that was a stall where I found it on my prep sheet. Before book 3, Vergen goes a little, overboard with what he eats every morning. What is he eating? Do we have a final?
Okay, my editor asked me this actually. He's like, is he a cannibal or is he not a cannibal? And this is the truth. I wrote it differently in every scene, like whether I thought he was a cannibal or not. And so I don't know
either. I love that. And even if that wasn't the intention, that's a much better answer than anything I could have got.
Yeah, there's no truth to it. Maybe even Vergen doesn't know. Who knows? But yeah, I kind of in the places it came up, like I was in a different, I'd approach it in different angles, just depending. So no one really knows.
I'm also going to take this opportunity to compliment myself. People say I ask dumb questions, but Brian's own editor asked that question. So
yeah, he was curious.
What can you say? Though, what side of the debate do you fall on? Is it worse to eat a person or, as I quote, stick your dick in them? A dead person, of course, we're talking about. Because live. Yeah.
Right, of course.
I buried the lead there tremendously.
I'll be honest with you. I threw that question out to my characters to mull over, and once again, I try to be impartial. I didn't have a fight in that game. I think that they're both horrible things to do, and and this is the job of the citizens of Terra to decide which one is worse. I think like most things, context is everything. Because like if you're in a there's airships in Dragons of Terra. So if you're in an airship crash in the mountain range and they died of natural causes when they landed, like
I thought of that too.
Chilean soccer team,
yep.
I for your own survival, you didn't kill them; they're dead anyway. Maybe they were the pilot and they got you into this mess to begin with, like that movie. I think in that case, it's this quote's going to be taken out of context. So in full context of the quote, it's okay to eat a person. But then there's a lot of times when it's not okay to eat a person.
Can't wait to cut that one up in editing.
I struggle to think of a place where the other one is okay. So I guess just eating a person is better under certain contexts. Okay.
I'm going to propose this to you, and this one might have to come out. Like the Chilean soccer team, if you crash an airship and you have an extra body.
I don't like this angle, but continue.
Then which one is worse?
I think they're all bad. See, this is much the gift of writing is that if you don't want to answer a question, you just cut the scene off. It's like, well, that's out there in people's minds, and I'm not even going to engage with it anymore because Simeon's throwing a rock at people's heads, and that it's a gift to be a little to be able to author the right pauses for conversations that you don't want to finish.
And that is how you lose the retweet for the promo of this episode.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be tough. See, like, if I was writing this interview as a fantasy author and I realized halfway through my sentence that I didn't know the British word for sense, I would have had, some type of creature attack me. And then the whole thing would have been this meta interview where like you're getting recorded while I'm getting attacked, and the whole thing escalates and it becomes this sort of like handheld found footage situation. And we never would have like learned how stupid I was about foreign currency. So
that was I'll segue this. I gotta go down on a bunch of questions because the rest of them are just as bad.
Just gonna keep on going down this road.
I got other questions. 5 or 6 knives is too many, according to some people.
Mm-hmm.
But Bershad, he had put 7 or 8 on him, and then he instantly loses all of them. So was the 9th one enough?
See, this is the thing. That one might have held on, because once you've used all the available packaging for your knives and you got to put one more on, it's going to go in a more secure area. He wanted them to be accessible, but that is what defeated him in the end as he was being catapulted through the air. Centrifugal force, whatever you say that, it's no one's friend when you've got a lot of poorly attached knives on your person. So yeah, I think one more would have done the trick.
How many forks is too many?
See, the fork it's a versatile tool. Can a man have too many forks? This is the Joe Abercrombie question. If you ever have him on, you'll have to ask him. I would say after 3 forks, you've probably overforked yourself. Yeah.
Okay.
But 3 is about right. Yeah. You can justify 3. Even if it's as simple as dessert fork. See, this is another situation. I don't know what they're kind of. There's your dessert fork, oyster fork. Okay, oyster fork, main fork, dessert fork. Those justify themselves. You never know when you're going to encounter an oyster bar, like a roaming oyster bar, a random dessert. If someone offers you a random dessert in the street, you want to look like an asshole and use a normal.
You're gonna look so stupid. Exactly. You're gonna look so goddamn stupid.
It's like when I offered you the dessert, I assumed you had a dessert fork on you. Like this is the modern age. This is 2022. You don't carry a dessert fork on you.
You only have what everybody, of course, calls the main fork.
Exactly. Be civilized about your forks.
This show used to ask such important questions.
Derailed every single question you have, and in some way of taking you off the rails. So
that's because you need to publish another book. I'm okay getting canceled.
Fair.
Howler monkeys, spider monkeys. This was the conflict. It's like Bloods and Crips. Who is winning? What is the conflict? Why do they have beef? That's the real question.
I think it's resource guarding.
Okay.
And just general kind of wanting to win. They're competitive monkeys. And you get beef with people, and there's
run up on them.
It's so funny. I know what you're talking about, but it's like, yeah, the howler monkeys and the spider monkeys have like an ongoing feud, right? I can't even remember what I read. I remember thinking about it for a good long while, though.
That's like the last paragraph in the book, by the way. So if everybody thinks I don't fucking read the whole thing through, fuck you.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I didn't know what to do for the appendix because I'd done, this sort of in the first book, this very detailed thing on just the different dragons, and then I'd done something else for Sorcery of a Queen that was a little bit more kind of a Cyrus Ward sciencey, and I didn't really have like a third one for that, but I was just kind of envisioning. I guess we're doing spoilers, right? So.
Yeah. You want to throw them out there? I guess.
I was envisioning, a quiet life in this ruin, after all the drama's done. I feel like the drama lives on, but it's in animals being assholes, basically. But they're also just doing their own thing. So, there's going to be some kind of drama. Part of it, because, I feel like my dog, we live in like, kind of a suburb neighborhood, and there's backs up to all these different yards, and she's got this like ongoing feud with the squirrels who are up around, which is like fairly common, obviously, but then sub feuds with like mostly the dogs like catty corner to us. Like that's the one that she's really kind of like she's got beef with that dog to the far right. They're cool. It's like, we'll bark occasionally, but overall, they're simpatico. And it's this whole, this ecosystem, if you will, of just animal feuds and things like that. And I think that stuff is interesting.
I thought that part was hysterical. I thought it was hysterical. I thought it was so fucking funny. Vergen going full-blown insatiable cannibal. Was that the most awesome, disgusting thing that I think has ever been written?
I think I really enjoyed that, which sounds weird given what you just said, but it took me a while to get to that too. I wasn't sure exactly how to have him progress, and you know, I wanted him to be a match for Brashad, but there were a lot of different ways to do that. So I tried a few different things, and I think all of them were like they were toned down more in some way, but there were pieces of kind of the final thing. And eventually I was like, I'm just gonna go all the way with it. And so those scenes were a lot of fun. It was sort of like
cyborg.
yeah, and then kind of like once I like decided to do that, I've been messing around with kind of that whole like last act or whatever for quite some time and trying all these different things. But the whole Vergen final showdown thing I wrote, I think in like, like one day and never really changed in any meaningful way. So yeah, I enjoyed Vergen's comeuppance at the end.
He is awesome. Just such a cool character. All right, I'm gonna speed some of this up. How many times has Willem contracted cock rot?
I mean, at least twice, and he learned none of his lessons from the first one. And
you shouldn't.
Exactly, and it could be as many as 5. I'd say probably not more than 5. Yeah.
We're throwing out a lot of hard numbers out here, and I like it. I think we should be extremely specific. Was this all because Osiris wanted to see Atlantis?
Partially, yes. He's see, what he would say is that every other person in the world has a criminal lack of curiosity about the way the world works. And he was just trying to do the right thing, and everyone else wants to bury.
Well, he's the hero, obviously.
Exactly. He thinks that he did nothing wrong, like the same way Thanos did nothing wrong in that whole perspective. Cyrus believes that he did nothing wrong. Yeah.
I would agree. I feel like I'm gonna tone down this next section because this already has gone horribly. No,
too far off the rails.
All right, but I'm obligated to do it. This is the #1 fantasy podcast for talking about dicks and dick jokes in books. And
there we go.
Judging by the stats, you have some great ones. So I'd like to read some of my favorites back to you.
Okay. All right. Lay it on me.
Granted, this is covering 2 books. I'm going to start out with, I'm going to save that one for last. You going to talk the entire time again? Balerion, Kiko responded. Probably, Felgor said. My cock wears out long before my capacity for conversation.
Yeah, I remember that.
Any chance you could shoot lightning out of your cock like Ashlyn Malgrave? Because that'd go a long way to resolving this predicament. Carlisle gave Willem a look. First of all, seeing as Ashlyn doesn't have a cock, that isn't where her lightning came from. Nah, for her, I figured she blasted demon craft out of her. End sentence.
Yeah, you gotta end those things before they get out of hand.
And already mentioned in the interview, his cock is a foot long. That's just a story, said Jackal, waving a hand at the notion. No, Becky Stark used to run a tavern in some Atlas coast town, and she screwed him twice. Once on his way to Vermont and again on his way back. She confirmed it. A foot long. Becky is known for exaggerations. Griddle frowned. What's so special about a big cock anyway?
Yep. I wrote all those. Here's a better lens to put it under. So my grandmother, she's passed away, but she she got to hear a lot of these books, but she's quite old. So my mother would sit with her and listen. They would listen to the audiobook together. So and my mother is very proud of me, and my grandmother was very proud of me too when she was still alive. So
that's all that matters.
Exactly. My mom might have been pretty quick on the fast forward when she some of those lines coming along. Yeah.
You know what? You don't want to get too comfortable anyway. You might cry or you might hear cock. You never know what you're going to get in an audiobook.
Exactly. You can go anywhere. Yeah.
For the sake of talking about something else besides dicks, I'm going to read the best one in the whole thing. This is the best joke. This is one of the top dick jokes I've ever read in fantasy book. The Ransom Queen, I heard she was a witch. Fucked a bunch of Valmyrian forest demons or something to get lightning magic. Don't know about that, but she's a good tinkerer. Huh. Well, she can tinker my dick whenever she wants.
That one I forgot writing. That one was new to me too. Who said that in the book?
I don't know. I forget where I pulled it from.
I don't remember reading that.
When I pulled it out, I didn't include who said it. So that's my fault on the research. I could find out after. That shit was funny. That was funny. What's the deal with Silas at the end? Is he invisible? What is he?
This is another thing that's it's left up to the reader to interpret.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you? I thought there was gonna be more. I just keep it moving. The play in
It's one of those things where like it's there's a bunch of different things that could be going on there. I do have in my head what I intended, but the cool thing about books and stuff in general is it doesn't really matter whether you take it the way I intended it. You can take it however you want, and I'm good with it.
Aren't you happy?
I claim no ownership over what was going on in that last scene.
Aren't you happy we did 2 books this time, so you don't have to make some excuse why you wouldn't come back to do the third?
I love chatting with you, man. Like I said, this is the highlight of my Monday. I was doing bug testing for websites for the first half of my day, so this is more fun.
Shit, so was I. All right. I think I don't have any. I think that's all I'm gonna throw at you because the last one's just as bad.
No, lay it down. You can't tease it. Give it to me.
Fuck it. The play in Nagarok where the brother gives his sister a love potion. Have you considered submitting that to Pornhub as a?
See, that one I will own because I just lifted that from like a Midsummer's Night Dream type shit. Like that's all Shakespeare. He's the one who came up with that. That's not me. There's one, I forget who says it. There's one part where someone goes victory, and I was wondering, was that from Entourage? I don't think I was like deliberately channeling it, but Entourage is one of those things that once it's inside your viscera, it doesn't really come out. Exactly. Like would I say that Entourage was an influence upon me with this trilogy? No, but was it? Who's to say?
And on that note, where can everybody find your books?
They're out in the US, the UK, and Italy and Russia
everywhere.
Too. Yeah, they're all around. And
Did you say Russia as well?
They are, yeah. The foreign rights deal for Russia went through a while ago, so I don't know what's going on with it necessarily, but that was one of the foreign rights things that went through.
That was a good time to just pause and move on. Where can people find you?
I'm mostly on Twitter, but also my website, briannaslund.com, and I have an Instagram account that I am afraid of. So yeah, mostly Twitter. My website, I have a newsletter. You can always drop me a line to the website. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I was like hearing from people. So yeah.
And I can promise you on his website, this will not be under the selected media section. Thank you so much for coming back on.
I need to update that anyway. So you'll be right at the top because it goes in chronological order. So
not if you want Tor to talk to you again. Thank you so much for coming back on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. It's fun.
Huge thanks for Brian. I'm always surprised when an author comes back on and he took that challenge head on. I don't know when the next episode's coming out. Shout out to all of you. I love making these, so I'm going to keep doing it. Obviously, I'm not doing it at the frequency that I've been doing it. That doesn't mean I'm planning on stopping. Just means that I've reorganized what I'm doing. Keep on reading something. Peace.